Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Sushi and I'm Jackie. And I'm no doctor, but I am hella passionate about upping your energy so you can feel better in your body and live your life effortlessly. Today I want to chat to you about what I have learned from an incredible book by a scientist called Jessie Inchauspé. She's French. So this right here, you need to get your hands on it if you don't already have it or haven't heard of it, or even check out her Instagram called Glucose Goddess. It's a whole movement and it's all about leveling your blood sugar. So I'll break it down for you in 3 steps of how you can do this already today and onwards to make sure you're getting off that roller coaster of having energy and then dipping down and lacking energy and focus as well. So if you've ever experienced that afternoon slump, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you've had breakfast in the morning and then suddenly you felt hungry again an hour or 2 later and you're like, constantly need a snack to keep that energy up, or constantly need to refuel with a coffee, right? So I myself don't drink coffee, you might already know, because 2 days later I'll just crash and burn. I'll read you this quote from health.harvard.edu. They've said for many years the medical field did not fully acknowledge the connection between mood and food. Now this is huge. Because if you're feeling good, you've got more energy, and it really depends on what you eat, but not just what you eat, but how you eat it, which is what we're going to go through in this video. So to give you a brief explanation, you might have seen graphs of this, where when we eat food, the glucose spike in our body goes up, and then it comes back down around 2 hours later, and that's how our body has energy to move, to have cognitive thinking going, you know, to keep us alive. So it does depend on in what order you eat them, when you're eating them, and you don't necessarily need to cut anything out. This is the brilliance of this book and this discovery. You don't need to completely cut out all sugar in your life. You don't need to restrain yourself from the yummy snacks that you love. You don't need to suddenly go on this like keto diet, which I mean has its own benefits, but you don't need to do that, okay? This is the whole point of hacking this system and still being able to enjoy the meals that you love. First, you need to understand what glucose is, right? So we have a level of glucose when we wake up on a fasted stomach, and those recommendations, I'll just read you the numbers. Here you can see on this diagram that if we're under 5.7, which are a little bit different in her book, it's actually a little bit lower for the best recommended amount. But this recommendation here says under 5.7 of your hemoglobin A1C levels, right? Measuring your glucose in your body. If you have higher than that on your fasted stomach, between 5.7 and 6.5, you're actually in the risk of getting diabetes. And from 6.5 upwards, you have diabetes. Now I want to read you another quote. There's a common belief that if you don't have diabetes, your glucose levels should be of no concern. From this book, right? And she's debunked it so well, because everyone's blood sugar rises and falls, and it really depends on what you're eating. So if you're constantly getting spikes by constantly eating, and we'll talk about what types of foods do that, then that's a really risky path to take, because you can go down that path of getting diabetes. Now, if you've already got diabetes, you probably understand all this already quite well. But there's actually been cases where people have reversed diabetes too. Diabetes 1 is something that you're born with and they haven't progressed the research there, but diabetes 2 has been reversed in some of these stories, which is insane. I'll show you this part here where she talks about eating foods in the right order. So there was a study in 2016 which proved out of 2 groups with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, they were given a standardized diet for 8 weeks and asked to eat their food either in the right order or however they pleased. The group who ate their food in the right order saw a significant reduction in their hemoglobin levels, which I went through earlier, which means they started reversing their type 2 diabetes. Wow! The other group, eating the exact same food and number of calories, but in no particular order, didn't see an improvement in their condition. So this is like serious stuff, guys. And look, if you don't have diabetes, well, this is what I'm saying. You could be on the verge of having it, first of all, which is not ideal. And because there's a whole lot of symptoms that come from this. There's not only diabetes though, there's so many symptoms that come from this constant spiking of your glucose levels and your energy rising and then dripping down really deep, right? Because what happens when we eat something and let's say it's high in sugar, which produces a lot of glucose in our body and rushes in really fast, which I'll explain in a minute. But then our insulin rises, and the insulin's job is to distribute it elsewhere, so then it's not, because we're overflowing with it, right? We need to put it somewhere, otherwise it's just going to turn into free radicals, which it does anyway if it can't handle it. So it stores it in our fat cells, for example. So the goal here is to steady that glucose level. So let's explore how we can do that. So, tip 1, when you get out of bed, eat a savoury breakfast over a sweet one. Let me explain. Imagine your stomach is like a sink, okay? And this is an example Jessie gives in her book as well. Great visual. Imagine it's a sink and your intestine is the draining pipe, right? So on an empty stomach, there's nothing in the sink. Okay, you've digested all your previous meals from the other day. And if you're going to pour something sugary in there, say some carbs, which turn into sugar, or anything high in fructose or sugar itself, then that will drain straight into the sink and spike your glucose levels really high. To slow it down, you need to understand the different types of foods first. So there's 3 food groups, right? The first food group is vegetables and fibers, which have fibers. Those are the ones we want to eat first because fiber literally slows down the glucose streaming in. Okay, so it's like a little netting, acts as a netting in the sink. Once you have had the fiber, then you eat the proteins and fats, which is, for example, meats, or if you're a vegetarian, like chickpeas, tofu, stuff high in protein, eggs, avocado, just really healthy fats, right? They can help as well. Nuts are healthy fats. They're the second food group that you want to eat because they also help slow down the glucose spike, right? The glucose rushing in. And then we've got the third one, which is your carbs and your sugars, and fruit is a part of that because fruit does have fiber, but it's also high in fructose, which has the same effect as sugar turning into glucose in your body. Okay? There is actually 2 different things, but we won't get to overcomplicate this. Like, you do have a fructose level as well as a glucose level in your body, but they don't really know how to measure the fructose as well yet. So we're focusing on the glucose, and fructose spikes that too. So eating a savoury breakfast then helps you level out that spike. And then for 2 hours following your breakfast, you're feeling fuller, you're feeling more energized, your cravings go down, and genuinely you're probably in a better mood because you're not having that slump and that dip right away, okay? Whereas if you ate a sugary, sweet breakfast, there would be nothing to slow down the intake of glucose. It would all rush in. Your insulin would spike. Your body would freak. It's trying to push it into the muscles and into the fats, the overflowing glucose. And then you feel burnt out once that slump comes 2 hours later and you literally want to take a nap, or you're craving that coffee, or you're craving more sugary foods to up that spike of energy again. To give you an example, I love myself scrambled eggs with some spinach, mushrooms, and then maybe a slice of toast at the end for a little bit of taste. And that can be a little bit of carb at the end, right? Or you can have leftovers, like a stir fry that you might have had the night before, and have the rice on the end. Just some boiled eggs with some snacking of like carrots, celery, and a few little veggies with hummus. So many different options, but those are just some examples that you could trade for whatever you're eating now. Because if you think about it, our Western culture, like pancakes, cereal, fruit salad, they are all high in sugar and carbs, and they are not ideal. If you love, say, a muesli or a cereals, then maybe trade it for a yogurt with lots of nuts and a little bit of fruit. Just think about those different food groups and what you're putting together for your first meal, because your first meal also has a trajectory towards the rest of the day for you to either keep craving those sweets, and then it just keeps going up and down, and you're in the roller coaster already. Okay? Start fresh. Start well. Welcome to my kitchen. The second tip is to eat the food in the right order. So that, like I said, you don't have to give up your desserts, your snacks, your sweet treats, your fruit, but just making sure that you're eating it in the right order. So let me show you the fridge, because I actually sorted my shelves to kind of match this. I have all my veggies that are low in carbs. Like we've got celery, broccoli, broccolini, tomatoes, mushrooms, snow peas, carrots, lettuce, all in the one drawer. So then I know those are the ones I can reach for to eat first. They're high in fiber, low in carbs. So that's what I would start with any meal, okay? So now we're on lunch, let's say, in a day. So I'll snack on some little cucumbers or carrots, and then I'll maybe make a little toast. So 2 slices of toast with avocado and a ham slice on it. Ham and avocado, high in fat and protein, okay? That's the second food group you want to eat. So you've got eggs as well, tofu, beans, chickpeas, they're all high in protein too. And like I said earlier, any type of nuts are high in fat, so you can eat those as well after your veggie intake. Then you can eat your carbs. So carbohydrates, right? So that's your breads, your pasta, your rice, maybe even a few sweet treats like a cookie or a muffin, or your fruit as well. So then you can have an orange after that meal. So just ordering it in those 3 food groups in that order. So 1, fiber, veggies, and potatoes, just to be clear, are carbs. Secondly, fats and proteins, and then your carbs, thirdly. Okay, eating it in the right order. Again, imagining that sink will slow down the glucose rushing into your body. It will level out your glucose curve. Your dip will be less. You'll have more energy lasting longer as well, and you'll be less hungry. So you won't be reaching for food right away. Ta-da! On this topic is that if you are in the afternoon and you do want to have that little sneaky chocolate, just eat a cucumber or a carrot first, then have your sneaky chocolate, because that'll reduce the dip. I'll put a graph up here that shows you how much it can reduce the spike and dip of your sweet treat just by adding that healthy fiber first to slow down the glucose coming in. So again, another thing she goes through in the book is your metabolic flexibility. So that's the health of your metabolism, right? The body's ability to use glucose for fuel from the last meal you've just eaten, or using fat for fuel from fat storage units. This allows you to go longer without food, to increase your metabolic flexibility, to eat bigger meals less times throughout the day. So more filling meals rather than snacking every hour. So just knowing, again, that order of food and having it all within those 2 hours, because that's how long our digestion takes to process the foods. So having it within the 2 hours, that snack of veggies first, and then that'll be a bigger meal anyway, and it'll keep you full for longer. So naturally you won't be reaching for the snacks that are in an hour's time, okay? Third tip, last but not least, is movement. Look, sugar addiction is a real thing, because the more we eat sugar, anything sweet, the more we crave it. So another hack she describes is to move 10 to 15 minutes after you've eaten the high carb or high sugary meal. Let's say you're at a party, there's no bloody veggie sticks around, and you really want a piece of cake. You're like, okay, cool, I'll have this piece of cake, and then I'll excuse myself to leave, because, you know, it's the end of the party anyway, and I'll go for a quick walk around the block. Or maybe even entice someone to come with you to go for a quick walk around the block in that area. Or go to the bathroom and pump out a few squats. Do something to move your body and move that blood flow around, engaging your muscles, because the overflow of the glucose has been pushed into the muscles and the fat stores. And so when you start using those muscles, you're burning it off, okay? And you're also, once it's all burnt off, getting into the fat cells. Movement is key after the meal. I know a lot of people think, Jessie says this too, that if you can't do it perfectly, then don't do it at all. But that's a really sad mindset. Like, I just want you to take something away from this video. If it's at least one of these tips that you start implementing and you start focusing on doing in your life, you will notice a difference. Because look, my story, I'm pregnant at the moment, and I had to nap, God, like every 3 hours at one point. Because I mean, look, growing a baby is hard, but it takes toll on your body. But I'm eating well, I thought, I'm eating healthy. I don't understand why I'm like so tired suddenly. And yes, I honored my body, and I am privileged enough to have the time to nap. But I just found this and I was like, wow. All these like simple shifts I can do keep me more steady in my energy. And then I felt more productive, because during the day I could actually do more things of the stuff I wanted to do while I was building a business, you know, prepping for baby, and still keeping my active life, because I just love movement and actually getting out and about and doing things socially. So it's been a lifesaver. So I really recommend trying one of these or all three, but it's always good to start small, and just doing it for at least a week. Okay, try it for a day, see how you feel, and then do it for another day, do it for another day, do it for another day. And you'll surprise yourself. You'll be like, what is going on? Not only will you have energy, too much glucose can deepen our wrinkles because of the effect it has when there's too much in our body, okay? She talks about a process called toasting, where our cells literally start getting browner and browner as we get older. So this can slow down that process of toasting our cells. And then literally once they're like, you know, fully toasted, we die. Old age. That's how it works. There's obviously more scientific terms behind that, but that's literally the basis of it. So if you can slow that down, it also means you have longevity of life, reduce the wrinkles. Lots of people have reduced any skin outbreaks as well. PCOS has been affected by it, so they've reversed those symptoms. And obviously diabetes too, like we mentioned earlier, has been reversed using these hacks. If that's not enough proof that this bloody works, I don't know what is. But hey, if you liked what we went through today and if you've gotten something out of this, maybe share it with someone or like the video, you know, with that little thumb up. So hit subscribe and I'll see you next time.
Zing, bloop.